Hey guys, look who's actually posting on time. And I've got notes. Oh, you can't see shit. Ugh, too overexposed. Today is gonna be a little bit of a different video. Obviously, from the title, you can tell that this is not gonna be a story time or a drunk video. This is gonna be a conspiracy theory video. Hit the music. A lot of you guys enjoyed my last conspiracy theory video about Marilyn Monroe, but you said that it needed creepy music. Here you are. I know I'm trying to make like a funny beginning and stuff, but this video in reality is not funny at all. P.S. Really quickly before I begin, you guys said that I change my voice when I'm doing a conspiracy theory video, and I do slightly, but it's not because I want to be Shane Dawson. A lot of you said only Shane can do conspiracy videos. That's not true, because anyone could do them. But I feel like when you're doing a conspiracy theory video about death, you kind of gotta change your tone. You can't be super happy about it. You can't be just like blah about it. You gotta kind of be deathy about it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I changed my voice according to whatever the video is about. Not because I want to be like Shane Dawson, which is such a stupid comment. I love his conspiracy theory videos. I've already given him credit for that. I love him, but yeah, I'm doing my own shit. I mean, leave me alone. But yeah, this video is gonna be about Jonestown. And Jonestown is a really grim story, but I can't tell you about the conspiracy theories without really telling you everything that happened leading up to the Jonestown events. A lot of people think of Jonestown as 909 cult members just poisoning themselves, drinking a Kool-Aid, and all dying together in a mass suicide. And that's what I completely was convinced happened, because I didn't think to like research further until in my last conspiracy theory video, one of the top comments was asking me to do a video about Jonestown. And I'm like, what's there to do? It's just a bunch of crazy people that killed themselves. And sadly, that's not what happened. And I wanted to make this video because the story itself makes the idea that most of us think that was suicide bizarre. Really quickly, Jonestown, the name Jonestown was a nickname. It was a nickname for the People's Temple Agricultural Project, constructed in a jungle in Guyana. You know, I know you're already a little lost. If you know all about Jonestown, or you think you know all about Jonestown, I still encourage you to watch this unless you've seen like all the documentaries and you know the truth about Jonestown. But if you just think this was a mass suicide, or think that anything other than saying it's a mass suicide is just like a conspiracy crazy theory, then I encourage you to watch through this video. But if you're just here for the conspiracy theories, I will put like a little timestamp here and you can skip ahead. Most of this video is going to be me explaining to you what went down in Jonestown, because it's fucking crazy. But I will be getting into some of the conspiracy theories because I honestly don't think they're crazy, and I think they're true. So right off the bat, Jim Jones was a strange kid according to some of the people that grew up with him. They say that he was obsessed with death, he would kill animals, and then he would have funerals for them, which is just fucking weird. Eventually, in Jim Jones's life, in the 1950s, mid-1950s, he began the People's Temple, which is just scary that anyone could just start a church or anything. And I know that most of you are gonna be like, yeah, but most of them are good, or most of them, I don't know. I find that creepy. Nothing against religion or people's beliefs. I just find it creepy that one human being could start a church. Like, that's scary. They don't have to go through like requirements, or they don't have to like go to like church school. There's church school, right? I don't know. But anyway, he started this church in Indianapolis, Indiana. And it was originally started as a Pentecostal church, which is a branch of Christianity. If you don't know what Pentecostal is, just think of those videos, or maybe you guys haven't seen them, but it's those people that are like, hallelujah, the spirit is in you, and then everybody fucking falls to the floor. You know, that, I'm not trying to make fun of it. I'm just saying that's what Pentecostal is. Jones was actually really adamant about racial integration. He was completely against any racist or anything like that, which is amazing, and that's what brought so many black people to his church. The only problem for Jim Jones with the racial integration thing was that he was trying to do this in Indianapolis, Indiana. And back then, Indiana was, I guess, not the most racially friendly and including people on earth. And so eventually Jones got so much criticism that he ended up moving his church to Redwood Valley, California. And eventually he opened branches in Los Angeles and San Francisco a few years later. When they opened branches of People's Temple in San Francisco, that's when the People's Temple became politically involved. And the reason why a church became politically involved, mind you, I know this might be a little confusing, but it's gonna be important later. Jones had all these people in his church that pretty much did whatever he said, not like fucking go kill a goat and they would do it. I mean, they would just like be in a place if he wanted them to be there, and they would be there at that time, and they would be happy to be there. Like, they were very loyal to him. time. So whenever political people would be throwing a rally, think of how Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton would have these rallies, right? They would talk to Jim Jones and he would have his people go to that rally, be super lively and support this political candidate. So this was really valuable to political people. So much so that on multiple occasions he met with the Vice President of the United States and the First Lady at that time of the United States. He was a big deal politically, which was unheard of when it came to pastors or preachers. Little by little, Jim Jones started getting control of his people in small ways that in retrospect, you could look at and be like, oh shit, that looks really bad. But at the time happened so slowly that it made sense to them. Like Jim Jones convinced some of the older people of his temple to sell their house and give the money to the people's temple so that they could build a community for the older people. He would also get control of them by kind of faking trust. For instance, like there is this one video, and I will show you little pieces of a documentary that I saw from PBS, but there is this one story that this woman tells, and it's actually caught on camera, so I'm gonna start rolling the footage now. But there was an older woman in a wheelchair, and Jim Jones does his whole little spiel of the devil will come out of you and you will be able to walk, and all of a sudden she gets up and she starts slowly moving her legs. She can barely move them, and all of a sudden just starts fucking running, and the place went wild. Everyone went crazy. Everyone was so excited and everyone was in disbelief that Jim Jones had just healed this woman right before their eyes. It was insane. And one of the women in the documentary ended up saying how later on she found out that that woman could always walk and that she was a secretary, one of the secretary for the People's Temple. So he would fake these healings and stuff like that to kind of grasp them, kind of tell them, I can do this. Through God, I can heal you. And that kind of made them very, very fixated on him and very trusting of him, which is the creepy part of this story. Like this could fucking happen to anyone. Anyone can just fall into this belief if they have enough faith, and that's scary. You need to be careful. In the fall of 1973, some bad newspaper articles had continuously come out about the People's Temple, and eventually 8 members of the People's Temple left, which you would think that's a trivial number, but Jim Jones wasn't having it. He decided that he was gonna build Jonestown in Guyana. Now, Guyana is not in the United States, that is out of the country, and where he wanted to build this was in the middle of a jungle, his little utopia. One day, they said that Jim Jones was preaching. He threw a Bible. He just threw the Bible in the middle of the aisle and said this.
You're gonna help yourself or you'll get no help. There's only one hope of glory. That's within you. Nobody's gonna come out of the sky. There's no heaven up there. We'll have to make heaven down here.
He would say things like, I'll be your God, and just crazy shit. After that, he slowly but surely became an atheist preacher. He became someone who basically started preaching how there is no God and there is no savior. It's said that he was using drugs around this time. I mean, this was a time when cocaine was huge, and there's unfortunately a ton of cases of survivors and other temple members who had said that he raped them. Men and women, it's said that he was homosexual, but then he told everyone it was not okay to be homosexual, but it was okay for the men to sleep with him. He was just a really, really bizarre person. Unfortunately, drugs made him even worse, and I think that's ultimately how we got to where I'm about to tell you we got to, because this shit gets crazy. When they eventually moved to Guyana, it was a very smooth move. They all built that little utopia, and the US Embassy in Guyana was very helpful. Not only did they allow Jonestown to be built in Guyana, they allowed guns to be imported easily. Like the US Embassy was really, really helping Jonestown flourish or whatever. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the first things that started happening, one of the survivors recollected that Jones's voice would be played on a loudspeaker 24 hours a day. When they were sleeping, fucking brushing their teeth, wiping their butt, anything, Jones's voice was playing. It was playing whatever he wanted it to play, just his voice saying whatever the fuck he wanted to say. And that is just pretty much a form of torture, in my opinion. But for some reason, all these people stayed. They just stayed. Eventually, family members of the members of People's Temple started getting worried, and they didn't know where their family members were. I mean, some of them knew that they had moved to Guyana, but they had no contact with them, and they were worried about them. And there were also rumors that the people in Guyana, in Jonestown, were being held against their will, that they were being held with guns and all this crazy shit. So eventually, this congressman named Congressman Ryan decided that he was gonna go to Jonestown with reporters, with news reporters, journalists, and stuff like that, and he was gonna go check out what was happening. The reason why Congressman Ryan took it upon himself to do this is because Congressman Ryan was not just someone who runs for office and then just sits on his butt. He was someone somewhat of an activist. He would go in the middle of problems and try to solve them. So when he heard about this, he was like, you know what? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna see for myself. The few survivors recalled that Jim Jones was freaking out that Congressman Ryan was gonna come and check everything out. He first said, we're not gonna let him in. Then he said, yeah, we are gonna let him in, but we're gonna kill him as soon as he gets in here. And people were like, what? What do you mean we're gonna kill him? But eventually Congressman Ryan and the journalists and all that stuff flew into Guyana and everything was fine. There were welcome signs for them. It was a super welcoming scene. Everything was wonderful. And I think that Jim Jones's plan was to try to kind of fake everything and make Congressman Ryan and these reporters and all that stuff believe that everything was much better than it was. Now this part is the creepiest part because you get to see all these people who in 24 hours of this being filmed would be dead. And that is just horrible. There's women, there's children, there's newborn babies, there's men. It's just fucking horrible. But this is a video of Congressman Ryan and prepare yourself because it is creepy to me.
I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about questions that have been raised about your operation here. But I can tell you right now that from the few conversations I've had with some of the folks here already this evening that whatever the comments are, there are some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened to them in their whole life.
So as you can see, everyone was so happy. I mean, they said that it was the best fucking thing that has ever happened to them. And clearly they had been brainwashed. The conditions that they were living under, and I'm not talking like housing and stuff like that, but the mental conditions that they were living under are not good for anybody. It was strange to see all of them so happy and so elated, and 24 hours later they would be dead. Looking back at it now, after watching these documentaries and understanding these people or trying to understand these people, I don't think these people were delusional or fucking crazy or anything. I don't even think they were lying. I think that they honestly believed that they were doing something good. I think they felt like they had a mission there. I think they wanted something good out of it, and unfortunately that's not what happened. Later that night, one of the survivors remembers slipping a little note that said, help us get out of Jonestown, to one of the reporters. He put it under the reporter's arm and it fucking fell out. The guy who passed the note saw that it had dropped to the floor, picked it up and handed it to the reporter and said, hey, you dropped something. And a little 9-year-old boy started screaming, he passed a note! He passed a note, which honestly I would have kicked that little 9-year-old in the mouth. So it eventually became public knowledge that he had passed a note and Jones found out about it, and nothing happened that night. But the next day they said that they woke up and it was a nice day and everything was fine, but something just felt really, really dark. And that is an understatement for what ended up happening. Later on in the day, a huge storm came down and one of the people who survived said that evil itself blew into Jonestown. Ugh, it makes me like get goosebumps. After this guy the night before had passed a note, more and more people started coming forward about wanting to leave Jonestown. Jones first said that was fine. Everyone who wanted to leave is more than welcome to leave. Here's a little bit of footage of him saying that.
People play games, friend. They lie, they lie. What can I do about lies? Are you people going to leave us? I just beg you, please leave us. Bill, we will bother nobody. Anybody wants to get out of here can get out of here. We have no problem about getting out of here. They come and go all the time. I don't know what kind of game. People like people like publicity. Some people do. I don't.
And then they say that later on he started pleading for people not to go, and he started feeling betrayed, and he started pretty much just freaking out that people wanted to leave him. Eventually one of the survivors remembers going up to Congressman Ryan and telling him, you need to get out of here, we're all in danger. Clearly the people of the temple knew more than Congressman did, because the Congressman said, don't worry, you have a congressional shield of the United States over us, nothing's gonna happen to us, nothing can happen to us. And the guy who told him that was just like, you have no idea what you're up against. You have no idea. Minutes later, Congressman Ryan was just walking, and a member of the temple came up to him from behind, crying and sweating, took out a knife from his pocket and said, you're gonna die, motherfucker, and stabbed him. The fact that he was crying and sweating, it's just, what? So that was the first thing that kind of flew everyone into this chaos. Right after the congressman got stabbed, Jim Jones called for a meeting in the pavilion, and as the temple members were going to meet in the pavilion, all of the journalists and the people that came with Congressman Ryan were trying to get the fuck out of there. And so they went to the airplane, or the little airstrip that they arrived on. As they were approaching the airplane, a dump truck, which is, you know, a garbage truck, a truck that carries shit, I don't know, pulls up next to the airplane, and one of the people identified them as Jim Jones's closest people in the temple, his first-hand people. They came out of the dump truck, they walk around the airplane, they're like looking for someone. They're looking in all the faces of these people, and they're they're checking for a specific person. When they don't find that person, they get back into the dump truck, they pull up to where they can see everyone, and people hiding behind the dump truck started opening fire and killing the people that were gonna get on the airplane, which is just, it's just a horrible thought. 2 people survived that attack, and both people had to play dead, and the woman said that these people came up to her and shot her in point blank range just to make sure that she was dead, and it's a miracle that she survived. While that's happening, the people in the pavilion are meeting with Jim Jones, and honestly, I can't really explain how eerie this is, how insanely creepy it is to hear this insane man say these words, but yeah, this is what he told them.
The congressman's dead. You think they're going to allow us to get by with this? Must be insane. They'll torture some of our children here. They'll torture our people. They'll torture our seniors. We cannot have this. If we can't live in peace, then let's die in peace.
So basically, he was telling them, we can't get out of here, and we need to die here, and we need to die in peace because they're never gonna let us leave. And nobody wanted to die. Nobody wanted to die there. Nobody wanted to drink the poison. Nobody wanted anything. They just wanted to leave. One of the survivors recalls, and it's really, really horrible because I can completely relate to this feeling. He said that he just wanted a second. He just wanted a second to understand what was happening, because before he knew it, everyone was foaming at the mouth. Everyone was dying because basically it was cyanide. It was a poison that was being injected into people's mouths, into newborn babies' mouths, into just horrendous. Everyone was just dying like this, and he just like needed a second to breathe and understand what the fuck is happening. And when I get really stressed out, I have that same feeling. Like in times where I've been in danger or things like that, like I'm just like, I need a fucking second. I just need 1 second to understand what's happening right now. So him saying that really stressed me out because I can totally picture myself in this situation. And he said that he was thinking that when he looked to the right and poison was being injected into his newborn baby's mouth, and his baby was foaming at the mouth, and he watched his son, his newborn son, and his wife die in front of him. And what do I even say? What do I even say about that? That's not the only person that watched your family die that day. One guy said that his wife's entire family, her grandmother, her mother, her children, everyone was dead. And so she came up to the husband and she said, you need to hold me while I die because I don't have anything to live for anymore. So the people that were willingly dying were people that were dying because they had nothing left. The people that weren't poisoned were shot. And one of the survivors said this:
I ain't never used the term suicide, and I'm not gonna never use the term suicide. That man was killing us.
That really hits home with me because I completely fucking agree. This was not a suicide. This wasn't a mass suicide. I don't understand why on earth we have been led to believe that this is a suicide. It is completely a massacre. Jim Jones was a madman, and this was a complete injustice to these people that just wanted to make a difference. They just wanted a different life for themselves, and it just was so horrible. So that's the story of Jonestown. That's the horrible fucking story of Jonestown. Everyone fucking died. There were virtually no survivors. I honestly did not ever see how the survivors survived. I'm assuming they just fled off into the jungle and made it. But now I'm gonna get into the conspiracies about this event. So the first thing that was weird about Jonestown is there's a lot of discrepancies in the body count and in the causes of death of these people. So the New York Times and other newspapers reported, based off the Guyana army count, that 408 people killed themselves, but 500 people fled into the jungle. Which, if you think about 909 people, right? You think about all these people. It is impossible that just Jim Jones and a few other people that were helping him out would poison everyone. You would think that a lot of those people would have time to run. So this is what I believe. I truly do believe that a bunch of people fled into the jungle. A few days later, the US military arrived and the body count rose to 700, then to 780, and eventually 909, which is a big fucking difference from 408 people. So when people ask the US military why was there such a large difference in the bodies that you found versus the body that the Guyanese army found, the US military actually suggested that the Guyanese army people just couldn't count correctly, or that the bodies were stacked in such a way that over 500 bodies were just underbodies and you couldn't really see them correctly. Fucking bullshit. Another strange thing is that the Guyana coroners that showed up first to this scene of Jonestown said that people were injected in places that they could not have injected themselves in. Most people think of Jonestown and think of like people drinking punch, but a lot of people were actually injected with poisons. injections. Some people did have oral punches or oral Kool-Aids or whatever you want to call them that were poisoned, but a lot of people were just injected with cyanide. So the Guyana coroners were like, no, these people could not have injected themselves in these places. They would have needed assistance. And also, we don't believe that these young children, newborn babies, and kids as young as 3 years old could consent to suicide. So we don't deem this a suicide. We deem this as a massacre. We deem this as a homicide. Did the US take this and say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. How could they have injected themselves that way? We need to look further into this. Why did newborn babies commit suicide? That doesn't make any sense. No, they didn't. The US said that this was an obvious mass suicide and there was no need for further investigation. Also, something weird that happened to the bodies, a lot of the bodies of the victims of Jonestown were illegally cremated and also were withheld and not shipped to the US on time. So by the time that they got to the US, they were so decomposed that the people who were inspecting the bodies couldn't see any injection sites, and it was far too decomposed to even do an autopsy on. A lot of people think that's really weird. Why would people wait so long to send a body when that could solve this entire case? That could solve what happened at Jonestown. That could confirm that they were poisoned and that they didn't commit suicide. They didn't want to die. Now, I want to be clear because a lot of people are going to say, well, if the US say that it was a suicide, then it's a suicide. This isn't a theory that they were murdered instead of suicide. That's not a theory, that's fact. There were anonymous letters that were found of people with their last words saying, we did not want to die today. Our stories must be heard. You must tell our stories. Plus the survivors themselves who spoke out and said, this is not a suicide. This was a complete massacre. So there's that. So what's the theory, right? What is the conspiracy theory surrounding Jonestown? Well, the main conspiracy theory, and one that I believe, is that the CIA had involvement in Jonestown. Now, nobody knows if the CIA actually had involvement with killing everyone, but I have a strong belief that they did. The reason why I believe this is because the American embassy was so open to help Jonestown be built, have guns imported. Why does a church and a temple need guns? One of the survivors actually remembered thinking, why the fuck do we have guns? We're a church. Where did these guns come from? So the theory is that there was this person named Richard Dwyer. He was the deputy chief of mission for the US embassy, but he is also said to have ties with the CIA. There's this book called Who's Who in the CIA, and Richard Dwyer was listed in that book. And also when he was questioned about his involvement with the CIA, he said no comment, which sounds like a very CIA thing to say. But anyway, Richard Dwyer was not only a part of the US embassy, but did have ties to the CIA, or was said to have ties to the CIA. And apparently there were multiple voice recordings on the day of the Jonestown massacre of Jim Jones saying, take Dwyer out to the East House. And later on was also heard saying, get Dwyer out of here before something happens to him. So Jim Jones on this day, on this crazy day where all these things are happening, still had that #1 priority of protecting Richard Dwyer. Why? And second of all, why was Richard Dwyer even there? He wasn't a member of the People's Temple. Why was he there on the day of the massacre? How did these people get these guns? How did any of this happen? It doesn't make any sense if they didn't have help. Jim Jones had a lot of political power, and I have no doubt that over the years of him reigning in his world of religion and eventually political power, I have no doubt that he met some people that he could ask for help when he needed to. And I think that's what he did. I don't see how he would have been able to do it otherwise. If it was just him doing it on his own, how would he possibly have gotten all those guns? Why would the US protect him? Why would they say that it was a mass suicide? And when I say US, I'm talking US embassy, US military. I'm not talking about the people who wanted to inspect the bodies, because those are obviously completely different people. It just seems so fishy to me. And also it makes a lot of sense because remember that one survivor that said that those people got off the dump truck and were looking for someone. What if they were making sure that Richard Dwyer wasn't there so that they wouldn't hurt him? I don't know. I'm just saying it's fucked up. But anyway, yeah, that's really the only conspiracy surrounding Jonestown, but I wanted this video to not only just be a conspiracy theory video, I wanted it to inform people on what happened at Jonestown, because that alone is a crazy fucking story. Be careful, you guys. I know that faith is a beautiful thing, and I do agree that it is a beautiful thing, but you need to be careful. You can't just blindly trust people. I know most of you are watching this and thinking, oh, Jesse, we would never just move somewhere because a preacher wants us to, but like I said, these survivors, these people were people that are normal. They're not crazy people. They're not people that are brain damage. They're normal people, just like me and you, so just be careful. But anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys found this interesting, and if you like these types of videos, just let me know. Also, please comment below with some conspiracy theory videos that you would like for me to cover, because I love them, but I don't want to cover the same type of ones that have been covered by people. That's why I try to wait and choose specific ones that nobody's done before, or at least I haven't seen. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every Tuesday and Saturday, and I will see you on Tuesday. Bye. My mom goes home and she obviously tells Sandra, like, dude, can you believe that this fucking happened? Like, someone vandalized this car. Sandra was acting super nervous and weird, and that she would like start laughing and kind of making a joke out of it, but then not, and she was just acting weird. And then my mom was like, okay, what the fuck? So she went back out to where the car was vandalized and she checked the brick that was used to smash the window in, or at least she assumed that that's what smashed the window in. And she fucking realized that that brick came from the front of their townhouse, Sandra's townhouse. It was Sandra.